folks, Old Man Grognard back here with another edition of you know what. Anyway, I want to talk today about what I use for prepping games. I know this sounds like a repeat, but I just want to show you the tome or tomes that I use for preparing games of my own creation. I've showed you the tome, Book of Adventure design and things like that, Ultimate Toolbox, things like that. I use those too. But I have two books that I have put together that I use. Some DMs have one. I end up having two. I'm a DM pack rat, pretty much. If I see something neat, I'm throwing it in binders. And they do overlap a little bit, but I'm going to show you these. One is the OSR Referees Game Book that I use. This is my game book. This is what I use to put together the game. Okay. It has things I put in here. I've got a couple of generic dungeon generators, including from the first edition DM guide. I printed those out and put them in here too. Along with, I also have central casting dungeons and other things. It depends on how I feel, And I've got quite a few like tunnels and trolls things in here because they sort of spilled out into this. Unofficial Dungeons and Dragons RC errata in case I need to correct something, which is highly unlikely. Things like I've got John M. Stater's Random Villages generator, among other things. I've also got food and drink, taverns, things like that. Basic D&D professions was something I wrote, which I kind of use for a skill system, sort of kind of. Stuff from like Dragon and Dungeon. I always note when I, copy something out of a magazine, what issue it is. Like says miscellaneous mishaps, Great Outdoors Dragon number 259, in case some player or some other DM says, "Oh, cool, where'd you get that?" Well, I got it in Dragon number 259, so go look for it. Curious items, PhD&D stuff, amazing list of things. I like that one. It's like 101 Weird Fantasy Hirelings. Odds and Ends, Alleyways and Slums. This one is kind of unorganized. I just use it for inspiration. There's an article called Randomize Your Realm out of Gygax Magazine number 4. A real quick chart for converting ascending and descending armor class. That comes in that comes in really handy. Another article from Dragon 48. I also have some notes in here of old dungeons, things like that. Kind of a catch-all, but it's really good at inspiration. I always put some, blank graph paper in the back just in case. Anyway, that's what I use for inspiration. I usually go I usually like to get out of the house. I go to the library and work on this stuff. Now, my main book for running it is the Referee's Reference book. This has more stuff that I printed out. It's a little more organized, so once I get a kind of an idea of what I want to run, I can go through. It's got monsters, PC stats and moves, and notes rather, campaign notes, combat, treasure, NPCs and names, plots, a bit about plots, and some miscellaneous reference things. The first one, monsters. This is where I keep my D&D, the infamous, I've been talking about D&D monster sheet. The monster sheet I came up with myself. There's two versions of it. I lost the file and then I recreated it in Quark. But this is the original one, if you can see it, D&D monster sheet. Something like that. And what it has is right across here, it's encounter, number, monster number. So if you're running 12 goblins, you can go monster 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Thaco, I do use Thaco, that's optional, of course. The monster's AC, the hit dice or hit points. If you haven't had time to write it, work out the hit points, write the hit dice down there. Weapon they're using. Weapon or weapons. Not much space there, but I managed to cram it in. If it's Clucklabite, I just put C/C/B, or longsword, whatever. The attack, the damage, I had to look there for a minute. the damage they do, and how they save as, since I'm using basic, so I'll put like F5, 5th level fighter, and the damage taken box. We're going to just do like hash marks so you can find out who's hurt, who ain't, and who's dead. And that's pretty much what I use. I've got a whole bunch of these. They're double-sided, and I just write them up for all the encounters I need. And that's what I use for monsters in things like, also the next section in PC stats and notes, I have this old school RPG character log I came across that is very handy. And actually, you find it under BX character. I kind of like fussed it and changed it to like basic old school. But it's got, you can put all this, pretty much stats and notes for all the player characters that are in your games. So if you don't have a copy of their character sheet, you got something to work on. And it also comes in handy during encounters. You got one sheet right there with all the stuff on it. Some campaign notes. I got a little graph paper in there to write on. Combat is kind of skinny. Don't have much in there. Treasure, I've got all sorts of treasure tables in there. I got a nice system for generating a random treasure hoard from Swords and Wizardry. Check it out. That's a great game, and it's got some really interesting ways of doing the treasure. Basically, you do figure out how much is in the level of the dungeon with charts, and then you do, if there's magic items, they do magic item trade outs. Gem and jewelry trade outs, what they call is, you take, if you got 10,000 gold pieces in the dungeon proper, you can if you roll, you can take like 1,000 out and trade it in for a gem or a magic item or something like that and put that in there. I've got a couple other gem creators in here. I'm not lacking for material. NPC and names. I've got an entire copy of the Shady Dragon Inn in here, among other things. I've also got a chart in here that I made. There's my friend R.C. Pinnell, Thorky, hey Thorky, did one called Rhonda's Roadhouse, which is sort of another, is for basic, ready-to-use NPCs. I've also got a chart in here for off-the-cuff NPCs, Dragon number 226. I've also got a chart here that I made that's a compilation of all the pre-generated characters from the basic B series of Dungeons and Dragons. So if, I've got those to lean on, all sorts of NPCs. I put in here the big list of RPG plots, which is probably all I need. I also recommend from 3rd edition, they have 101 plots in there, a chart where you roll on it, and miscellaneous stuff like Wilderness Stocking Table. I also put in here, from 1st edition and basic, the encounter tables. The encounter tables are incredibly handy. I believe that's in the other book. They are incredibly handy for off the cuff. Need an encounter, need a random encounter, roll on one of those. And I'm sure if you can't find something you have, then you can do an easy substitution off the list. Anyway, that's what I got for making stuff. If you got your own books and can recommend anything else, so send it to me at oldmangrognard@gmail.com. One more thing, I do have to go through this. All DMs go through their books every once in a while to make sure that everything is, like I may have too much stuff in here, So I periodically go through both these books and cull stuff that's like redundant, because I don't think I need like 5 NPC generators, things like that. I also want to recommend, somebody recently recommended the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide. I don't play Pathfinder or 3.5, but from what I understand, the charts and tables in there are invaluable, especially the NPC stuff. So I'm going to be checking that out, and I may make a few substitutions in my book for that stuff. I do have the PDF, so I can do that. Like I said, if you got any questions, comments, tell me about your DM book, oldmangrognard@gmail.com, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.